Hello and welcome to the first episode of The Faux Show. I'm Ryan Macheska alongside Michael Fontana and David Pergamo. And today I'd like to introduce our very special guest. He was the former voice of NFL on Fox and the World Series, but now has transitioned over to ESPN and will now be the voice of Monday Night Football, Joe Buck. Hey, Mr. Buck, how you doing?
Hold on, boys. You got me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Good. All right, good. What's up, man?
How you doing?
I'm good. What high school is this? Is this Jersey?
No, this is college.
It's college. Jesus, you're old enough to be in college now.
I know, they let me be in college.
What the hell's happening in this world? That's impossible.
I know. It's crazy.
For the other two, I've known Ryan since he was about 5. So
wow.
I can't wrap my head around the fact that he's in college.
By the way, this is Mike, and that's
Hey, Mike.
David.
Pleasure to talk to you, Mr. Buck.
Yeah. Thank you. You too. And what's the other guy's name?
I'm David. Nice to meet you.
David. All right. What school are you at? I should know that.
High Point University,
Which is where?
North Carolina.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
So
Did you watch the game last night? Do you care? Were you rooting against the Tar Heels?
I had Villanova to win it all. So I was rooting against UNC, but I really wanted Villanova. So
Yeah.
it was hard to root for Kansas too.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So what are we talking about today, fellas?
Believe it or not, we're going to talk about use.
Okay. Great. My favorite topic.
Yeah. So, we have a bunch of questions lined up. So I think we're just going to kind of like introduce ourselves and then kind of just dive right into it. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good.
all right. So just, are you recording it?
Yeah, I'm
Just
gonna put it. Yeah.
Okay. We're just recording a couple different ways too, just so we don't somehow
Lose it.
That would be
Yeah.
tragic. So,
Yeah, no problem.
yeah.
All right.
Okay. Hello and welcome to our first podcast, our first episode of our podcast. I'm Ryan Macheska alongside Michael Fontana and David Pergamo. And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Buck, Joe Buck himself, the voice of now ESPN's Monday Night Football. Thank you for joining us.
Man, that a lot of things just sounded weird. First of all, ESPN, who knew that was going to happen? That kind of fell out of the sky. And secondly, Ryan Macheska, I've known you for a long time. Your dad is my favorite producer I've ever worked with, Pete, who I've done baseball with since the early 2000s. And gosh, it's good to see you. I didn't realize you were in college. So bad for me, yay for you. And I'm glad you're making friends at school. They seem like fine, upstanding young men.
Yes, absolutely. So, you've had some time off between games. What was your last game? The NFC Championship? Correct?
Yeah. Seems like it's about 5 years ago with everything that's happened since then. But yeah, that's the last game I did.
Yes. So what have you been doing in between during your time off?
Well, you'll see, Ryan, when you get a little bit older than you are now. I don't think you have a wife and kids yet, do you?
I do not know.
Okay, good. I wouldn't recommend that in college. I have been busy being my wife's husband and my now almost 4-year-old twin boy's dad. And we were just kind of completing a move. We've moved into a new house, along with the whole new network thing. And I've just been home and it's been nice. When I come off the season, whether it's football or baseball, and those two mesh together in October, I'm dying just to be home. Everybody gets off work and all they want to do is go travel. I get off work and all I want to do is be home. So I'm happy to be home. That's all I've done.
Yeah. Well, you said you just moved, right? Did you move out to St. Louis or you?
Yeah, we went from one house in a neighborhood to another house in the same neighborhood here in St. Louis. So yes,
Okay.
we are here in what's known, Ryan, and Michael and David, as the entertainment capital of the world, St. Louis, Missouri. This is where all the important stuff happens.
Well, speaking of St. Louis, just to dive right into it. You obviously, so you grew up in St. Louis, correct? Your dad was announce for the Cardinals. So can you tell us about your early life and what was it like just living in the Buck household?
I was really lucky. I was child number 7 for my dad, child number 1 for my mom. And I came along in 1969, which was kind of the beginning of my dad's career taking off. So I have 6 half brothers and sisters, and they saw the years where my dad was establishing himself. But when I came along through the 70s into the 80s, that's when he was kind of the man here in St. Louis and doing the Cardinals and doing CBS Monday Night Football on the radio and doing CBS TV and games with Hank Stram and John Madden and a lot of the all-time greats. And I was lucky enough to have somebody that wanted me around as his little kid. And he took me on road trip after road trip when I was a little boy. I missed a lot of school to be on the road and traveling around with my dad. And I think I saw a father who loved doing what he did for a living. And I think it planted the seed in me that that's what I wanted to do for my life. And I think, looking back on it, had he been anything, had he been a bus driver, plumber, lawyer, ad executive, whatever it was, if you see a parent that loves doing what they do for a living and you're close with that parent, you're probably part of you is going to want to do that too. And so I paid attention as a little kid, and I was always by his side. And that is kind of the secret sauce in me being ready to do a World Series at 27 years old at Yankee Stadium, is because I was traveling around with my dad and I was soaking that all up when I was a kid. And to more specifically answer your question, he was traveling a lot. He was in and out of town, but I think that kind of kept me on the straight and narrow path. I didn't want to be the kid that always got in trouble because I didn't want to waste my time when he was in town with being grounded or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I was lucky. I had a dad that was really present and wanted me around, and I had a mom that was so good as our parent that when he was traveling around as much as he was, she stepped in and filled both roles. So I was a lucky kid, and I'm at least smart enough to realize that.
Yeah, well, you mentioned your dad, he an absolute legend, an icon. So, you said that you traveling with him was, really what kind of brought you into wanting to do the same thing. Did he kind of push you to do the same thing as him? Did he want you to be broadcasting? Or because, my dad, he's trying to push me away from TV as much as possible. So,
well, no, it's a good question. And I think the more, I'm now father to a daughter who's 26, a daughter who's 22, and then these 2 little boys. And I think the best thing my dad did was he never pushed me one way or the other. He never said, hey, well, I broadcast baseball and football for a living. That's what you should do. And here's how you're going to do it. And here's the blueprint. And I'm going to hover around and be a helicopter broadcast parent and make sure you do everything the right way. It was none of that. It was, I think it was me wanting just to be around him, and then me having that fire lit. And I would broadcast games into a tape recorder in an empty booth when I was 13, 14, 15 years old. I was broadcasting at AAA Louisville when I was your age, and then was doing the Cardinals at 21. And I think the main reason why I went into all that is because my dad never pushed me toward it. He led by example. He was somebody that I watched, studied, and wanted to be like. And I think he knew that down deep. But once I started, he just kind of let me find my own way. And that was such a gift from him that at the time I didn't realize, but now that I'm a parent myself, it's hard to not thrust yourself into kids' decisions. And he just was not that kind of guy. So no is the answer. He did not push me toward it.
You attended Indiana University, Bloomington. Could you describe what that experience was like? Like, what did you major in?
I majored in English. Around the time I was trying to pick a school, I was lucky enough to go with my dad and talk to different network executives, whether they were radio executives or TV executives. And I think I even asked the question, what do you look for in a young employee, potential employee? And the answer was versatility. I think it's great to be interested in sports, to go into sports and do it throughout your college career. But I also think it's good to just be a student and be a kid and learn what it is you like in life. And when you're at your age, you can go, I want to be a broadcaster. This is for sure what I want to do, but you don't know until you get into it and you try it and you see if you really like it. And, that's the case. Excuse me. That's the case really with anything you want to do. So the more you can expose yourself to when you're in college, the more, you find what you like and what you don't. And so I went into English. I could have majored in broadcast journalism. It's a much bigger major now than it was back in the 80s. Nobody was really doing that. But now it's a big major. And I think kids make a mistake in throwing everything into that and not studying history, not studying English, not studying geography, whatever it might be. Excuse me while I die. And so I went there as a kid and I wanted to be a student, and I was working professionally by the time I was 19. So when I was at school and I was a kid. There's plenty of time to be an old crusty, crabby adult.
So do you feel like as if your major helped your broadcast career? If you went back now, would you have maybe majored in broadcast journalism?
See, I'm such a different case because I had so much already working knowledge in the business because I was around my dad. So I think if you can broadcast and if you can communicate and if you can sit in front of those microphones and you can be at ease and you can be yourself, you can study business and do that. You can study anthropology and do that. I think it's hard to go, okay, I'm going to be a broadcaster. I'm going to read a bunch of books and then I'll be a broadcaster. You just have to go do it. So would I? Yeah, I think I would major in English again. I think I would take it more seriously. I wish now that I had read all that I was supposed to read when I was your age and had really studied it instead of just trying to get by. But that's the route I chose. And, I think having a good working knowledge of the English language is a good thing to have when you do what I do for a living. But there's a lot of different routes to go. And, would I major in broadcast journalism? Probably not. I don't think I would. I think having a varied background and seeing different things that might interest me at the time, I think that would have been a better way to go. And I would do it all over the same way. Maybe not English, maybe, I don't know, pre-med, but I was too dumb. I'm just not that smart. So the English was a good major for somebody who can BS for a living and just kind of get by and write and read. And that's what I like to do. I was terrible at math, so that was out. And then it's like, what's next? Okay, English. Let's do that because that'll help me at some point in my life.
So, Mr. Buck, I was grateful enough to do some color commentary for my school back as a freshman for our female soccer games. And it was very stressful, and I dealt with tons of anxiety just for the buildup and the preparation for it. And I wanted to know, do you still get those feelings after being so long in the business, and how do you even deal with those feelings?
Absolutely. I think it would be abnormal. You'd be a lunatic if you were about to put a microphone in front of your face and you didn't feel anxiety, especially in this world. And to be real honest, to be your age and deal with social media and whatever, I mean, I think social media can be a really useful tool, but for the most part, when you're the one on the TV or you're the one, in the arena, so to speak, everybody's got an opinion. Oh, this guy sucks. This guy hates my team. But none of those people have ever done it. And none of those people have ever sat there. Right. So the answer to your question is absolutely. I still get excited. I get anxious. I don't get nervous. I think nerves, after you've done it for a while, blend into more anxiety in a good way. Like, I can't wait for this game to start. You can't go on the air and be scared. You have to go on the air and be confident that you've done all the work that you should do, that the preparation's all tucked away. And then you go and you watch and you react and you keep your eyes open and you just see what you see, because all the research you can do and all the numbers you can put down. And I've had this conversation with Ryan's dad 1,000 times. everybody studies all the film and gets bogged down with all these stats. But all that is based on games that have already happened. You're there sitting there where you're doing the soccer game. Nobody's ever seen that game. So enjoy it. Keep your eyes open, see what you see, and say what you say. And that's how I go into these games. I do all the prep. I work hard. I work every day. I get ready for every game as best I can. And then it should almost be like if a big wind comes up and blows all your notes out of the broadcast booth, you should still be able to watch the game and do it. And that's how you have to do it. And you know what? If you're nervous because you're not confident, that comes with reps. That comes with doing it over and over again to where you feel comfortable putting a headset on, sitting in front of a bright light, talking into a microphone. And, that comes with time. You can't be hypercritical of yourself. Enough people are going to be critical of you anyway. Throw social media away the more you do. Find 2 people that you trust. Ask them what they think about how you're sounding and the job you're doing, and be confident in yourself, because you go on and you do that game, that soccer game, and in your case, and you come out of there, you're like, I was nervous. I wasn't at my best. And you might as well just let it fly and see what happens. And just, what's the worst that can happen? Who cares? Just go be you. And there is only one you. It's not to get PBS on you, but there is only one you. And only you are able to put those words in your way to what is happening on the field. So be you, have fun, and lighten up. Don't worry about it.
What is the pregame note-taking process like for you for like a big important game?
Well, here, I'll show you. Hold on.
Ooh.
So we got that stuff.
Some real physical evidence.
Yeah. Primary source.
So whether it's baseball or football, baseball's a little different because you can't really get totally prepared to do a baseball game until you get to the stadium and you know what that day's lineup is like. So that starts this mad scramble 2 hours before the game of getting the lineups in, getting all the information as readily available as you can, and you can't do that like you can in football. So I have these boards that I make up, and it's, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the Green Bay offense going out. This is the San Francisco defense coming in, or actually that's the Rams in San Francisco. And then the opposite is on the other side. And so it's name, number, height, weight, years in the NFL, college, how they were acquired, in the draft or by trade. And then you start layering on top of that all the stats that are, the current stats for that week and whatever's relevant that week. And then you add little anecdotes and you add a couple things you want to make sure that you get on the air. In this case, San Francisco's number one in the NFL, averaging almost 6.5 yards on first down, something that I write in different colors so that I see it when I'm under the gun. But, again, if a stiff breeze came up and this thing disappeared, I should still be able to do the game. It's not going to be as detailed, but it would be different. And I could, maybe it'd be better. I don't know, but this is the kind of stuff I do all week. So I'll read. We have a service called Sports Scan. If I'm doing the Rams and the 49ers, every 49er article and every Ram article will be in my inbox every day. I read them. I highlight them. I keep notes on them. And I have to act, if I'm doing this, this was week 18, I have to act like I've watched all 17 of their previous games. And you can't have little gaps in there where you missed that, they traded whoever, in the case of the Rams, or when did they pick up Von Miller, or when did they get Odell Beckham? These are things that you need to add on there, but it's just a day-to-day process that ends with like the big final exam in front of millions of people on national TV. And the sad thing is homework never ends, and they don't tell you that little secret, but this is homework. This is, and my test every week is no joke. I mean, I have to be ready. I have to be prepared. And that's what going to school to me is all about, is preparing yourself to be ready under the gun when it's time to take a test. And my test just happens to be in front of tens of millions of people on Sundays.
And, being in the booth and, being able to do all that homework, obviously you have people in your ear during the entire game too. Like, how do you deal with, I guess it's just kind of growing and just doing games over and over again, but like just having those people in your ear the entire game while trying to announce, does it ever like get annoying, or does ever like
just when your dad does it to me? No, that's the mark of a great producer. That's what makes him great in particular, is he picks his spots. So one thing I don't like is when we come on the air at the beginning of a game and we set out what we think's going to happen based on our research, based on the people we've talked to. And then we do the game and it ends and we don't really revisit those points. We don't revisit what we came on the air talking about. And your dad's very good at reminding me during the course of a game, because you're so zeroed in on pitch after pitch or play after play in football that you don't ever take a big step back and go, well, why are the 49ers winning this game? Why the Houston Astros, win tonight? And here's what we thought would happen, and here's what did happen. And so I love it. I love having help. That's what I look at it as. And when you have a great relationship with a producer and a director, you almost know where the other person's going to go before they do. And I know what your dad's thinking. I know what our director's thinking. Our director's listening and thinking along with me. And so you get in lockstep with these people the more you do it. And I hear that voice in my ear while I'm talking, but it doesn't stop me. It's almost soothing to me. So I can process what somebody's telling me while I'm talking. And that's a skill that you develop the more you do. But the great producers, and your dad is one of them, they pick their spots and they know where to talk, when to talk, what to say. And they use a minimum of words because they want to get right to the point, help you get to a commercial break or get to a graphic that's going to pop up or whatever it might be. The great ones know what to say and when to say it.
So, you were the voice of Missouri basketball for a little bit, and it eventually led you to be in the NFL, announcing for the NFL, and you were the youngest man at the age of 25 to announce like a full slate of NFL games every Sunday. So, how was that? Did you know that was kind of something that you were, like a record that you were breaking or at the time, or is that?
No, I didn't. In fact, I was just trying to not get found out as a fraud at that time because I'd never done football. And like you said, I was doing college basketball and I was doing Major League Baseball. And then Fox comes along in 1994 and they jump into this NFL game and they wanted to hire not just Pat Summerall and John Madden, which they did, not just Dick Stockton and Matt Millen, which they did, but they went after a lot of young announcers. And I went out to LA and I auditioned and I had practiced with my dad in the living room off of TV. And I went to LA and I sat in a studio and watched a game on TV and put a headset on, listened to the producer, and basically got hired off an audition. And, there I am at Soldier Field at the start of the 1994 season, wondering how I was going to get through the game because I'd never done the NFL. I'm not sure that if that same thing happened in today's world with social media, I don't know that networks would be willing to take that big of a chance on a bunch of young guys. It was me, Tom Brenneman, Kenny Albert, Kevin Harlan, and then a bunch of unproven analysts that were in most cases just fresh off the field who had never broadcast anything. So Fox wanted to develop a whole new roster of young announcers, but without social media, there wasn't a lot of pressure at that time. And now, you think about how hard it is to get up and running, and man, the minute anybody stumbles or says something wrong, social media is there to just pound them in the head. I don't know that would happen in 2022, but it did in 1994. And so for that, the timing was ideal for me. But yeah, I didn't know or care really that I was the youngest to do it. It's nice now to look back on that and know that I accomplished that. But at the time, I was just trying to get through it. And whether I was 25 or 35 or 45, there was pressure to start at the network level there and do a sport I'd never done before. And I was just trying to get through the day.
You are a prominent play-by-play for both MLB and the NFL for a while. Like, do you have a sport that you favor over the other? And is it easier to call another sport?
I think TV is different. If you put radio play-by-play of a baseball game, if you can do that, I think you can do anything. Meaning that's the hardest one, because there's so much dead time. You have to constantly remind the listener of where the fielders are, if the outfield swung over for somebody to pull, what kind of a night is it? Is it a humid night? What's the pitch count, all that stuff. And then you do TV, the pitch counts on the Fox box, or what we call at Fox, the little scoreboard in the corner of your screen. The score is up there. The outs are up there. Basically, you can tell the entire story of where you are in the game by just looking at your screen. So now you're just adding your voice to that as the play-by-play guy. And that means you have to just be smart about it and not wear people out, and add to that information with a story or how hard a play is at that moment, whatever it may be. Radio is a different deal. Radio, you got to do everything. You got to go through it all. But as far as the two TV things, they're just very different. Like I still say there's nothing like doing a Game 7 of a World Series. I just think after you've gone through an entire regular season, an entire month of October, all these different series, and it comes down to one game, that's when baseball is the best. You could say the same for a Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, whatever it is. Football, though, you get to a Super Bowl and you have that 2-week gap. And then it's like, okay, here we go. We're going to have 100+ million people tuning in over the next 3.5 hours. So be ready. You make a mistake and you're never getting it back. And when you do baseball, it's just a little slower, and there's a little more time to make points, to talk about strategy, to talk about who's available in the bullpen and who's available off the bench for these two managers. And football, it's like a play happens. Who made the catch? Who made the tackle? How many yards did they get? Your partner talks. Play clock's winding down. They come back up to the line of scrimmage. You do it again. 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 Baseball, a guy could foul off 6 pitches in a row. And it's like, if you're doing it on TV, you don't have to – people are watching it. You don't have to talk about it, all 6 foul balls. But your mind can go in a lot of different places. So it's a little more fun doing baseball because of that. But football, when you've got 110 million people watching, there's nothing like that. So, they both have their pluses, and there aren't really any minuses with either one of them.
If you could do Game 7 of the World Series or the Super Bowl, which one would you choose?
It almost depends on who's playing, and which is terrible to say, but now that I'm out of baseball, if you've got the Red Sox, Cubs, really Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, big market. We got to do Game 7 of the Cubs winning for the first time in 108 years in 2016. That's a Game 7 that's like, man, I'm the luckiest person in the world to sit here and get a chance to call this. So I'd say Game 7. The others got all the hype and the bigger audience, but the strategy and the intensity of pitch by pitch, I think, is just really fun to do.
You've worked with plenty of different color commentators during your tenure with Fox. What was the process of working with so many different colleagues?
I think you need to, in the case of John Smoltz, he and I got together after I had been with Tim McCarver for 18 years, Harold Reynolds and Tom Verducci for 2 years, and then Smoltz. And it's almost like speed dating. You got to figure out what the other person likes. You got to really listen. You got to listen not just during the game, but before the game, to kind of figure out what they're looking for in that afternoon's game. And then you just kind of go in and it's like a dance. You figure out what the other person's rhythm is, and then you try to, at least in my case, I try to fit myself around that. Like John Smoltz and Troy Aikman are very different people. They're two very different sports, but they're both really prepared. And I think when you have a prepared partner, you can take the broadcast in a lot of different directions, and they'll be able to go with you, and vice versa. They can talk about stuff and you can add to it, or not. You don't always have to do that. But I think just understanding who that person is and getting to know them as people is as important as getting to know them as a broadcaster. And so I try to immediately let that person know I'm there for anything they need. Try to put them at ease, make sure they're comfortable, and then we just go to it. And eventually, after, in the case of John Smoltz, after 2 innings, I was like, okay, this is going to work. I love working with this guy. In the case of Troy, we also had Chris Collinsworth with us, so we had 3-man booth, and that's a little bit more difficult to figure out who fits where and when somebody talks and what have you. But I've fortunately, I've never worked with anybody that I didn't really like. And I think liking somebody and knowing that, they know you have their back, and hopefully vice versa, puts you ahead of the game. And then you just kind of figure out the other person's rhythm and try to fit it together with what you want to do.
So you talk about working with multiple partners, and in the fall of 2020, you had this crazy week where you announced 7 games in 7 days. You were traveling from, pretty sure you were in Kansas City, and then you had to go to Texas for the World Series, and then you were in Philadelphia, and you were doing the Packers. What was it like first of all, what was that experience like? And then just to be going back and forth with announcing with Troy, and then going back and doing the World Series with Smoltz. How was that?
It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot when you put it in those terms. When you're in it, you just kind of go day to day. I compartmentalize really well, so I can say, hey, I've got game 4 tonight of the World Series. I'm pouring everything I have into the next game, and then I'll worry about the Thursday game on the car ride out of the stadium tonight. But for now, I'm putting everything I've got into game 4. So bouncing back and forth between the two sports, I like that. It keeps me fresh. And I like walking into the booth and I see Troy and I know what he's all about. And then I walk back into the other booth and I see John and I know how he goes and I know how he works. And the thing is, the preparation is pretty similar for the two sports. Like I'm still reading those same articles. I'm still highlighting those same articles. And I'm building my research to where it's all as readily available as I can make it. And then you just watch the game and react. So if they started here in my office, a game of whatever, billiards or ping pong, or if they fit a baseball field in here and they started playing it, I could find my way through it somehow, some way. And so it's a challenge. But I like that kind of stuff. I like working and I like going and doing games. So doing 7 games in 7 days over 2 sports in multiple cities is a challenge, but it's fun. And so as long as you keep it fun, then I think you're probably ahead of the game. But again, it requires the people you work with to be malleable too. Like Smoltz knows and I'm coming in hot and I'm trying to catch up before the game starts, and Troy Aikman the same the next night. So they pick up the slack where you need it, and you try to pick up the slack where they need it. And that's what being a partner is all about.
So when would you start preparing? Would it be like right at, say like on Sunday it was Bucks Packers, for Monday's Bills Chiefs game, would you start preparing on Monday, or would it be right after the game on Sunday?
Right after. I try to do it, and I don't want to say flush it, because you got to remember where you've been and you got to remember what's happened in these games to a certain degree. But I need 6 days to get ready for a game. I can't, it's not like, okay, I've got whatever, Yankees Red Sox on Saturday, and then I've got a football game that Sunday. So once the Yankees Red Sox game is over on Saturday, I'm going to start getting ready for my game tomorrow. I've been building on that for 6 days. And then, once that Saturday game's over, now I can really just kind of focus on getting everything I've built up over the 6 days into a streamlined almost file. And I can then, I can look down for anything I need and I can find it. But it's a 6-day build. And then, as you go through a season, games pile on top of one another, storylines develop, and you go with wherever the story takes you. But I think that's the thing. You can't just you can't go, oh my God, I've got a game tomorrow, I got to get ready. It's got to be a process, because stuff happens during the course of a week that leads these teams into these games on a Saturday or Sunday or on Monday in next year's case. And, these storylines all kind of collide once they kick off. And you have to know where the story started, how it developed, and where it is when they kick it off. And you can't do all that in one night. You got to do that, over the course of the week.
So with your move to ESPN, it doesn't look like you're going to be calling MLB or World Series games anymore. With the history with your dad calling MLB games and your initial career commentating baseball, is that something that you're going to miss when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I will miss it. But I was getting down toward the end anyway. I've done 24 World Series, and I kept telling Fox that I was getting toward the end of this run. I feel like it's time for another voice. I feel like it's time for, me to move on and for Fox to move on that way. Whether I stayed at Fox to do Sunday football or not, one more year was going to be it. So will I miss it? Yeah, it's a part of my DNA because that's how I grew up. But for as much as I miss that, I'll get the benefit of being home more. And that outweighs what I miss professionally. If I'm here for my boys and I'm here for my wife, that's more important at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Was that part of the decision process? Was that you'd be at home more throughout these upcoming months up until September, that was part of the reason why you stopped calling baseball games?
I would say it's probably the main reason. I mean, that's the main reason why this opportunity was, you can't pass it up because you may never get it again. And it means a lot to continue to work with Troy. Next year will be our 21st year together, albeit at a different network. But the home life, my wife, Michelle Beisner, does the Monday Night Countdown interview, and working on the same night with our little sons at home, it made all the sense in the world. So it was like, you can't do everything. So you got to pick the right path. And this seemed like the right way to go.
Yeah. So now that you and Troy are moving on to Monday Night Football, does that add any more pressure now that it's a game prime time? It's not just I wouldn't say like another Sunday football game.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think about that a lot, and I've never really thought about that before. I think I'll be nervous again, and I think that's good. I think it's good to change it up. I think change is good. And I think when those first few Mondays come along, it's going to feel like the Super Bowl. Even though our first game will probably be a preseason game. But yeah, I think there will be pressure. Now, doing Thursday Night Football has helped because we've done that before for 4 years. Mm-hmm. But I do think having a nighttime standalone game is a bit different than doing one of the many Sunday games that get mixed together during the course of the season. So it's a good question, and I think I'll struggle with that up until they kick it off, and then you just go do your job. But I think I will be nervous, but in a good way, when the season rolls around.
Does that mean you and Troy are going to be bringing out the tequila Grand Marnier and a splash of grapefruit juice? Or
I may. I'm not going to speak for him. That got headlines, even though I told that story on Howard Stern somehow, and that Nobody paid 1 second of attention to that. And then I say it on Colin Cowherd's podcast, and they pump it out. I think I determined the last time I did that was 2015 in the World Series in Kansas City. I just got a huge beer, and I sat it there just as a reminder of, we're doing a baseball game. We're not curing cancer. We're not refueling an F-15 in mid-flight. We're supposed to be having fun. And that was kind of the visual reminder to just loosen up and have fun. And so, yeah, from time to time, if I feel like it's getting too tense, you got to change it up and pop the pressure balloon. And so, yeah, what is this, 2022? It's been 7 years. Might have to bring that back. We'll see.
You've had many notable and iconic calls in your career, and my all-time favorite was when Randy Moss, as Chris Collinsworth said, shot the moon to the fans in Green Bay, which you said that was a disgusting act. It received a lot of backlash and a lot of criticism. Did you know at the time that you said that you were going to receive a lot of criticism for saying that?
No, I didn't at the time. And then even for the rest of the week, and that's the thing with these controversies, they kind of they last for a few days and then they go away. That one doesn't, for whatever reason. And I look back on it and I'm like, I've thought to myself many times, I wonder if that happened in 2020, if I would have said that. And I don't know that I would have. I think I've become a little bit more protected and protective of saying things that are a little more gut reaction. And maybe that's a social media thing. I don't know. I mean, that predates Twitter and all the other stuff. But on one hand, I'm like, I probably wouldn't do it. On the other hand, I'm like, all right, I had some balls to say how I felt. And, I have to be willing to live with whatever comes out of my mouth, good or bad, game after game, because it's live and there's no delete button. There's no, let me think about that. I'll get back to you. You just have to say it. And you have to trust your instincts. And again, I mean, I don't know that was the right thing to say. It struck me funny. It was not just the funny meaning odd, that it wasn't just the mooning. It was like the up against the goalpost stuff. But Randy and I are good. He works with my wife and has for the last handful of years at Monday Night Football. He was at Fox. We've laughed about it. He didn't care then, and he sure as hell doesn't care now. So it's just kind of part of my past. And as much as, it's quote unquote controversial, it's as much of my past as calling the Yankees winning the World Series or calling a pop fly to the shortstop on some random Saturday. Just you do it, you live with it, and let everybody else worry about that stuff.
It's great that you say that, because I wanted to bring up another instance back in 2018. It was a Thursday night matchup between the Jets and the Browns. And you don't really commentate that many Jet games because us Jets are never really on primetime. But
right.
I think it was Isaiah Crowell's second touchdown of the game, in which he took the ball and he wiped his behind with it and threw it into the fans. And I was really worried that you were kind of going to rip into the Jets, and which you kind of just laid back and said, I'll get a flag every time.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, I remember the Randy Moss thing. I don't even remember that. So it just points out, sometimes the memorable moments, they can be categorized as good, bad, controversial, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's probably a good example that had that not happened with me in 2004 or whenever that moment was with Randy Moss, maybe I would have reacted entirely differently when Crowell did that. But, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's in the moment and you say what you say, and, that's what you put out there. And you can't be, to go back to kind of what I was talking about with you earlier, is you can't be hypercritical of yourself. And if some people like it, great. If some people don't like it, that's the way it goes. And you just keep going until somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, we've had enough of listening to you and we're going to get somebody else. And that's all you can do.
As Mike mentioned, as being heavily criticized for years, especially by New York fans, and being called, you were just against all New York teams. And then before Super Bowl 48, you did a comedy sketch where you were out in New York, and you had a whole bunch of fans booing you and throwing stuff at you and telling you that they liked your father more than you. And so was that your idea, or did someone reach out and say like that's?
I think it was pretty mutual. I think they reached out and said, we want to do something that would be funny. And then I basically kind of wrote all that and said, this is how it should be. And let's really do it if we're going to do it. So yeah, you have to be willing to laugh at yourself, and you have to be willing to put up with that stuff. And, because if you don't, they'll be doing that to the next person. The next person will be doing it instead of you. So you just have to kind of live with it, go with it. And, I think the best thing you can be is not precious and not acting like you're a big deal by being the announcer. And if you can't laugh at yourself, good luck in this world, because you have to be willing to not take yourself too seriously most of the time. And I don't.
You currently have a podcast with Oliver Hudson
which I'm about to get on in 2 minutes. So let's wrap this baby up.
Called Daddy Issues. It's not really a sports podcast, but like how'd that all start?
Well, we're buddies. I had my daddy issues. He has his. He's Goldie Hawn's son and Kate Hudson's brother and Kurt Russell's stepson. And we've been really good friends for a long time, and we wanted to do something that was different. I don't want to go on and talk sports. I'd rather go on and talk whatever, raising kids, being a husband, being a 50-plus-year-old man in the world. I think there's value in that. And we're not printing money. We're barely making anything, but we enjoy talking every week and kind of solving our own world's problems, if not the world's problems. And it's been fun to do. It really has. I love it. And I look forward to it every week.
I'll have one final question. It has to do with your wife. You guys working now together on Monday Night or she works on ESPN Monday Night Countdown. How do you feel? Are you like excited that you guys are gonna be able to work together on Monday nights, both on the Monday night games?
I think I am. She thinks she is, until we're sick of seeing each other. And we're like, wait a minute. I used to travel on my own. You used to travel on your own. Now we're in each other's lap 24/7. But yeah, I think it'll be great. And, we get along so great, and I love being with her. So I think it's going to be really cool to be able to go to wherever these Monday night games are week after week, be with my wife, her with me. I'm so proud of the job she does, and she with me, and we'll enjoy it. Life's short, and I know you guys have long roads out in front of you, but I never saw this coming. I never saw working with my wife, and now that it's come to pass, I can't wait. So it'll be blast.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being able to join us. We really appreciate it. And, good luck with everything in the future with ESPN and Monday Night Football and, the podcast and working with your wife. So
yeah, a lot going on. Good luck to you guys. Great job.
Thank you.
Ryan, say hi to your dad, although I talk to him maybe as much as you do. And you guys be good.
Yeah, of course. You too. Thank you so much.
All right, boys. See ya.
Take it easy.
Thank you. All right, boys. Don't end the podcast yet. We gotta say our few words, What do you guys think of the first podcast, our special guest, Joe Buck? How do you guys think that went?
I think it went fantastic. I think it went beautifully.
Joe told me a lot of things that I was surprised about. Did not know a lot about his life. Should have asked a better question about his wife, though, earlier on.
I mean, I was happy he went into depth. I'm really happy that he gave us very thoughtful answers.
He definitely, he wasn't afraid to talk, and I was really happy about that. He was, open. He was expressing a lot, and I think we tried to get a little bit of the humor out of him. We weren't very successful, but I think that he did see the humor in the Randy Moss thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I honestly, I don't think it could have gone any better, except
Yeah,
for the
really.
fact that I didn't know he had to leave. We had probably a few more questions. We
Yeah.
probably should have
Sure, I should have asked him. How long
asked
he
him
had.
that at the beginning, but
I wish I asked him what his favorite World Series call was, because he did talk about the Cubs, but I don't know if it would be 2004 Red Sox. Probably would get that over on him. I think that would probably be his number one call.
yeah.
What do you guys think for a football game?
I think his Diggs call, I think he values a lot because it's happened so late in his career, and for him to have that amount of energy, that play is not the same without his call and his voice behind it, in my opinion.
I have to agree. You know, you could look back at the 2000, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, 2007 Super Bowl with the Giants and the Patriots, and you have Tyree, and then you have Plaxico Burress, and you know, you could say that like he really didn't put a lot behind those calls, and then you go to the one with Stephon Diggs, and you know, he's yelling Diggs sideline touchdown. So I mean, I think that it's you know, it's not like growth, because obviously, I mean, you could still grow from, you know, your 13th season to your 20th season. So I mean, I guess it is growth in a way, but yeah, I mean, I would probably agree with Diggs is probably one of the bigger ones.
Did we ask him about his dad's call, his famous call?
We did not get a chance to. No,
Nah, it's whatever.
should have.
It happens.
That was going to be my question. If we had more time, I was going to ask about his dad's call, and then be like,
Because once it hit an hour, we're just gonna like
Didn't get into Lucky Bastard, his New York Times best-selling book, but
he's a busy man.
He's a busy
No,
man.
He gave us 50 minutes of his time. I think that's plenty more.
Plenty
to
than he
ask for,
ever.
so
Yeah,
we're very appreciative.
so we'll definitely we'll send him a text, and
yes.
So
Yeah.
I mean, to wrap up our first episode, we hope you enjoyed. We enjoyed our time talking to Joe Buck, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again sometime.
yeah, had an absolute blast. You know, hopefully Tiger does well in the Masters, and hopefully the Celtics win a championship too.
Who knows? Maybe we'll do this again. We'll get another big guest.
Maybe
We'll get Kevin Burkhardt or John Lynch or Troy Aikman or something. So
a Fox guy that will talk about Ryan's dad.
more. Well, thank you so much for listening.
Appreciate it.